Welcome back into One Winning Pod. Fortunately, another therapy session edition. The Baltimore Ravens were not able to hold on to their 10-point lead against Pittsburgh to take the loss. At the same time, the Baltimore Orioles were unable to procure a win in either Game 1 or Game 2 against the Texas Rangers in the ALDS. So not a terribly great weekend for Baltimore sports fans in a lot of ways. Basically the inverse of 3 weeks ago, right? 3 weeks ago, we were all excited. The Orioles had clinched the division. Ravens had an excellent road division win against Cincinnati. And then you get this Sunday. Sports fans, it's you enjoy the high points and you got to suffer through the low points. It's just how sports is. Drives you crazy, doesn't it?
It does drive me crazy. It really drives me crazy that we got the worst timeline for the biggest weekend in Baltimore sports since, I don't know, probably been alive. I mean, I guess like Super Bowls are a little bit higher stakes, like even though they don't have two sports going on, but like of a regular season and a postseason, I think that this is the greatest combination of all time because mainly that basically means the Orioles have to be in the postseason and they haven't done that much. So, we had a divisional game against the Steelers and I got to be honest with you, Peter. I didn't say it at the stadium, and we got the two runs early on that make us feel good. But I was like, once the Ravens lost, I was like, we're screwed. Like everything's going wrong. I don't know if we're gonna get the good timeline. I'm so worried.
It certainly did not feel very fortuitous what happened with the Ravens, and just an incredibly frustrating game. We go into it, first quarter, the Ravens are just doing whatever they can, both offensively and defensively. So it's the Colts game. It was the Colts game again. First quarter, you look at it, it looks like it's going to be a blowout in favor of the Ravens. And then one bad play happens, leads to another bad play for the offense, fumbles, drop passes, an offense that has all the talent in the league. I mean, certainly, of course, there's teams with more offensive talent, but they have talent that can rival some of those guys. And yet we're just not seeing this unit be consistent from week to week yet.
No, we're not. It's brutal, man. We scored the first 10 points of the game. We scored them in 17 minutes and change. And then we just said we're done. And that's not going to really cut it in the NFL. And that's not acceptable for the level of offense we came to anticipate by all the offseason acquisitions and just, I mean, an NFL offense should score more than 10 points a game, and they should probably score in each half, let alone maybe even quarterly, if they're good. This is unbelievably bad, and I just can't believe what we watched. We watched the first half pretty easily together, and that was going okay. It wasn't great, but things were kind of happening. And then when we walked to the stadium to go to the O's game, we didn't really see the third quarter and nothing really happened, at least on the scoreboard and everything. And we're like, well, the game is still going on. And they managed to have 14 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. And it was just all from mistakes and missed opportunities. We were gifted the ball at the 7-yard line. Surely we're going to get 3. We got nothing. We turned it over. And it's like, and it's just doing weird things. Like Odell, I think is a guy you want to trust in situations like that, but the pass wasn't good. And I don't even know if the design was great. I don't know, man. It's incredible to me how discombobulated the whole offense was. Like it wasn't clicking at all.
Got to give credit to the Steelers. They fought. We talked about it in the preview episode with Steve, our one of our friends who happens to be a Steelers fan. We said it, and I meant it. When this game happens, the records don't matter. They don't. You look. I mean, look at 2015. Obviously, the Ravens, worst season to date that John Harbaugh has coached. The only season of his that has ended in a losing record. What was the one high point of that season for the Ravens?
Yep. Yeah, and they showed before the game, it was like 709 points for us and 711 points for them in the last, like all the meetings, including playoffs, in the last, 16 years, like since 2007. That's nuts. That's insane because we know that there have been good and bad points for both franchises throughout that. Yeah. And
so I guess that segues into what we want to start with talking with this episode about, which is, and we were even saying it in the first half. We're like, look, everything's going our way, but we don't like that they're not scoring points. Like, you're leaving too much the score manageable within distance for a Pittsburgh team in this rivalry. Eventually, if you keep them hanging around, they're going to think that they can grab it. And that's exactly what happened. And the number one thing I think we need to talk about when we start on with this offense that everyone's talking about, and I think for good reason, it's just the drop passes. And it was everyone. It was Bateman. It was Aguilar. It was Andrews. It was Duvernay. It was, I mean, Odell probably had a drop in there too. I can't remember, but because we're just listing out all these names. But, Lamar Jackson, I don't even think you could say that any of it was on him. He might have actually played a perfect game, but just there were too many times where he had receivers drop the ball in key situations, too many times where the pocket collapsed before he had any chance to look downfield and get the ball out. I mean, Lamar Jackson is not beyond reproach. Obviously, there's certainly games where he's made mistakes and that has cost the Ravens. But in yesterday's game, there were just so many mistakes from other places. I can't put anything that Lamar did wrong that lost this game. He made plays, just no one else around him was doing it consistently.
This is a multi-tiered problem that's going to take a lot of discussion to break down. Like, let's start, I guess, with Lamar. So his stats for the day were 22 for 38 for 236 yards and 0 touchdowns. And this tweet is coming from Scott Barrett, DFB. And he said, if every pass that was dropped was caught and had 0 yak, the stat line would be 29 for 38, 553 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that says it all. There's nothing more really to say other than that.
I didn't think I could get more depressed about yesterday's game, but I just did.
You just did. It's incredible. And we got Jonathan in the chat saying Butterfingers are the official candy of the Ravens. Someone needs to shop that. I send it off to correspondents T and Calvin for that one. But yeah, bad times, man. Bad times. I guess we should also talk about the wide receivers. So this is interesting. Let me get back to my notes. What is a drop is a big question right now, because some books say 5. The eye test says like at least 7, could be more. I'm going to go off of the good old, what is this? It's called True Media, which is an interesting name in this day and age. True Media here has and this is all per the Athletic Football Show. They reference this statistic. 7 drops. We'll call it 7. There's only been 5 games since 2019 with 7 or more drops. And they said that we lost 6 expected points because of these drops. But I looked at it. I did a little expected points wager, and I'm going to say it's at least 9. At least 9 points were lost. So, yeah, pretty bad. Pretty bad. And I guess let's just start there. You have these drops. They're high leverage drops. They're downfield drops. They're touchdown drops. At what point are you, I don't know. Like, I don't think there's really anything we can say about it other than we can't have that happen. This is, if we're going to drop the ball that much, we need to run the ball more,
You can't. And I don't know. I've gone back and forth in my head and wondering, is this a problem on the player side or is this a problem on the coach's side? Because we're in a new offensive scheme, right? So how well do these players have that down? How much thinking is going on in the field? How game ready are they for these plays? We've talked about it. I mean, some of these concepts we're seeing that are getting rolled out look like they're straight from, the Greg Roman playbook. It's obvious that Monken is easing in his take on the offense. We're also seeing plays, that we never would have seen in a Greg Roman offense as well, formations and to the like. The one that really concerns me here, and we've talked about this before with Rashad Bateman, but everyone said, that's an easy catch. You got to make it. And in real time, I was ticked off with Rashad. I was just like, come on, man. Like, that's an easy play. Obviously I couldn't make that play, but he's an NFL wide receiver. You got to make that play. But as the game went on and more time passed, I was thinking about it, like we've been saying, we're not giving this guy any opportunity to ease his way back into playing time. He's not getting targets. He's not getting featured. I feel like that is also on the coaching staff, unless there's some stuff behind the scenes we don't know. I mean, since he's getting so few targets, he's got to be pressing a bit and overthinking when the ball does come his way. Like, I got to make this play or else it's going to, when am I going to get an opportunity again? Right. It just felt to me that we did, even though that's a play that Rashad should be able to make, I don't think that the coaching staff and the game plans have set him up well enough to be prepared for that catch at this point in the season, particularly with how much time he missed last year.
I'm going to push back just a little. And the only reason I'm going to push back a little is that the first game of the game was schemed to him. And they gave him a pass. That was his only catch of the day for 8 yards. And to me, I was like, okay, that was scripted. This was to install that trust that you're talking about. However, I don't think they went far enough. So, I got it. In the end, I do kind of agree with you. There was another pass, which I'm failing to remember now, was either before the touchdown drop or after, but I think it was relatively early in the game. It was down the field a little bit on the left sideline. They threw it to him, and the ball was a little over his head. Couldn't quite bring it down. I would say it's a high level of difficulty catch, not one that I necessarily expect anyone to make, but you hope they make. And I will say the aftermath of his performance is what's most baffling. So he goes ahead and deletes his Twitter, and then he refused to talk to reporters, and then he texts Jameson Hensley, everyone's favorite reporter, Jameson Hensley. I just kind of crazy that you just get a random ding from Rashad Bateman. I guess as a reporter, it's not too uncommon, but it's just he comes in there and he sends a whole bunch of texts basically saying, they're going to bounce back, weather the storm, etc. And he loves his team and all that. I don't know what it really, if there's anything to really break down about it other than, clearly the guy's frustrated. I think he really wants to be a part of this team and be what we expected out of the draft. And at this point, though, it feels like a therapist problem more than a drills problem. There's something else going on, I think, kind of in the head. Not I think he's too inside of his own thoughts. Because we know he has all the talent. He looks healthy out there. If he's not healthy, it'd kind of be a surprise to me. I know he had that hamstring setback, but I didn't really see any of that during the game. So I hope it turns around, man. We have all the hope in the world, but this is kind of the biggest problem right now is between him and Odell not stepping up. Yeah, Zay's playing well. Aguilar's exceed expectations too. And Mark Andrews is still doing well, but I think if we really want this offense to hum, you kind of need that third guy, it looks like, or a fourth, third wide receiver. It seems like, particularly with the amount of 11 personnel, there's 3 of them out there and only one of them are working right now, maybe 2, so that's, it is a problem.
Also particularly since you're not really featuring a second tight end in this offense as well, right?
So, yeah, likely basically didn't exist in this game. Yeah, 11% of the snaps, no targets, nothing. It
really is frustrating with Bateman. And yeah, to your point, hopefully the guy is able to weather this storm because, man, you're seeing some people starting to lose some patience with him on X and never know what to really take of that. If that's really, what the majority of the fan base feels or not, if people are more leaning towards being fed up with this guy and thinking he's closer to a bust or, maybe more on our side and feeling like he's going to break out, but it's just the cards just need to be in his favor to do it. It's just frustrating, to see this guy. And we're just left here speculating. We've been speculating since his rookie year, just wondering, like you always say, and you grind the tape more on him than I do, but I have seen it the times I have. It's there. It's there for the taking whenever we can find a way to get him in the offense. But just for one reason or another, just hasn't worked out yet. But hopefully he can step up because, look, the other guys on this team, Aguilar's been solid, but I don't think that the best case scenario for this offense is Aguilar being the number 3 guy on this team. I think he's solid and can give us plays when we need it, but I think he has limited upside. Odell, I loved what he gave us in week 1 and week 2, but my fear with Odell coming into this year is starting to come to fruition right now, which is just that he might be a guy that at this stage of his career, his body's so beat up that we just can't trust him to stay healthy. like you're saying, that play where they had him go against Joey Porter, back in the day, that's a play Beckham would win 9 times out of 10. But now at this stage in his career, Joey Porter, rookie, fresh out of college, has had good success coming out. He's a guy we liked. He's in his athletic prime. Putting Odell up against him, I mean, Odell's got the veteran knowledge to know how to do that, but I just don't think his body right now is there to make that play. And it's just, that's not saying he can't contribute to this team. It's just saying that, we might have to manage expectations here with just the fact of what his body is physically at this point.
Particularly challenging when the ball is kind of like off target too. Maybe he could have done, another the catch, one-handed craziness on that ball, but I don't know, man. The Odell thing's really strange to me as well. He runs off the field, the trainers, comes back. Kind of unclear what happened there. Maybe it was an equipment issue. They had to go back to the locker room to find it. I don't know, but it doesn't look pretty. And I mean, lack of production from him. It's a challenging state of affairs with Odell. We're kind of looking at this roster we created, and I think we're a little surprised by the way it's turned out. Aguilar's been the most dependable of this trio we're talking about right now, excluding Zay. It's just not how we wrote it up. I could have seen him being third, but second it's kind of shocking. It's really surprising. And it wasn't, was without his warts too. He had a drop that was a touchdown. I don't think that even counted. Yeah, I don't think that counted in that one guy's stats because he wasn't in the end zone yet, but he had it. He was on his way. And I mean, the other thing too, let's talk about Zay for a second. This guy was a roller coaster. Drops the ball, gets a catch and jukes people out of their shoes, drops the ball again, gets another catch, juking people out of their shoes. It's just he was pretty inconsistent too in this game. And it's just, that's tough to build an offense on. I think the biggest thing we got to think about, and I think it was worse for the defense almost, but not that much worse. I think both sides had an issue with this. It kind of goes to the thing that Ken McCusick talks about a lot. When you're playing lesser teams, do not give them the opportunity to win bets. Make a bunch of small bets, win the game, get out of there. And the Ravens made a couple bigger bets, I think, in this game that they needed to take, and that cost them the game because they fell flat. They went the wrong direction. And I mean, that's just so painful. Listening to Christopher Harris's show, and he said the Ravens offense has the attention to detail like a toddler with a pink crayon and a white wall. And I was just like, that's a very interesting picture to paint, but I get it. We are just all over the place as far as execution goes. And I don't know, people think it's a coaching issue. The hardball conversations come up. And I guess in a way, I'm do we need to baby these guys? The execution has been really poor. We've been left with timeouts in our pocket. Do we need to be calling timeouts and just repeating ourselves? Get down on the knee, get at their eye level, kind of with the kids. What are we doing here, man?
I don't know. I don't have the answer. It's just frustrating. It's the thing with Zay. I mean, the thing we have to remember, look, he's still a rookie, right? He's still a rookie. He is showing that he is going to be a guy in this league who's going to be a playmaker, who's going to be a dependable guy. But he's going to make mistakes still. And I could certainly see, Ravens, Steelers, even though right now it kind of feels like, if anyone still keeps track with the MCU right now, everything post Endgame is kind of okay, it's still, you're still getting that thing. If you tune in, it's still got the name brand, but it's just, since Suggs and Roethlisberger left, they were kind of the last of that line that really made this rivalry what it is. I mean, it's still Ravens Steelers. It just doesn't have that same oomph, at least in my opinion. It hasn't for a couple years now. But still, I mean, you heard Roquan talking about the rivalry coming in, saying that he hasn't earned the right to call himself a Raven until he beats Pittsburgh in 2023, right? Just saying, you got to earn that right to be a Raven every year. Tomlin made some remarks about the rivalry in some pressers coming up to the game. So I think, that could have been in his head a bit, just the game, what it meant to the fan base historically and stuff like that. Look, he's going to make those plays eventually, but rookies make mistakes. They're not going to be consistent all the time, particularly when we're asking so much of a guy. Like you said, we're asking to be the number 2 receiving option on this offense. And honestly, the number 1 wide receiver. Like, Mark Andrews, even though he's a tweener, he's still listed as tight end. That's got to be in his mind, and that's got to have some type of, at least be something that Zay has to like acknowledge mentally and wrestle with, right? I mean, it's tall order. It's tall order for a rookie on a team that's expecting to contend deep into the playoffs.
It is a lot to ask of him. It is. And at this point, I think we're going to keep asking. I don't think it's going to stop. We're going to ask him to grow quick, and we'll see, what that garners us. But we're past, a quarter point. It's stupid, like division 17 doesn't divide nicely, but we're seeing some trends. We're seeing some trends with this team. But one of the things is just lack of execution in these bigger points, and also just like these weird functional miscommunications. So I thought they just went for it on 4th down, and it was a terrible play because like people didn't seem to know what they were doing. But it turned out like it was a no snap situation. They're trying to run down the clock, see if they can get them off sides, and that caused like all the craziness, which kind of makes sense, right? You don't think the ball's going to snap. Everyone's surprised. They're not getting off the ball well. The rush gets there immediately. The pass, the routes look bad. Like everything, like no wonder that play looked awful. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know how we haven't coached that better. If you go up there saying it's a no snap situation, I guess he thought like, or I can snap it if I think they encroach, but like that's the wrong move. You have to have everyone else, flinch. Be like, oh, like he moved, I moved because of it. Like that's how they throw the flag. You can't have the snap happen because once the snap happens, it's a real play. Like it just feels like kind of 101. Like I'm not an offensive lineman. I can't say I would have fully thought of this beforehand, but it does kind of make sense. I feel like if I was an offensive lineman, I would have known like in that situation, if we're looking to get a penalty, I don't snap the ball because we're not trying to run the play. Like what was the play? It makes you wonder, was there even a play or they just go backyard sports? Because the route Zay ran was weird.
Yeah, what actually transpired certainly seemed very discombobulated. I have no idea. That again, we're talking about young players making mistakes. We saw Gunnar Henderson do it in game 1.
Yep.
Quote unquote miscommunication between him and the manager. Miscommunication there between second year center Tyler Linderbaum and John Harbaugh. Look, I mean, it happened. It was not good. Certainly, I think that is a bit of a momentum killer in a sense. It's just 3 points, but still scoring before half, always a great thing to do. I don't think that singular play lost the game, but again, like we're saying, it was just one in a series of all these type of plays that just felt like they had no business happening. So, and it's a shame too, because Tyler Linderbaum, he might have had the best game of anyone on the offensive line yesterday. But that mistake certainly looms large, particularly at a position where the less attention you draw yourself to for the average fan, the better you look. So
that's right. I think the other thing I want to talk about is the running game. We only ran it like 25 or 26 times this game, and it was always effective when we did. But I felt like, again, we kind of like forgot about it. We went away from it in key situations. We ran twice. So it was 3 -1, and then we threw the interception when we were 7 yards away. And I get throwing the ball there. I really do. I think I always say this, and it seems like maybe there's a correlation, but like whenever we run plays that have like only one option, like a very like clear, like it has to go to this guy, they seem to fail to us, man. Like even if the play goes to the number 1 read, like it feels like more of a real play. You know what I mean? Like these like single point of failure plays, I don't like in these situations. They really drive me up a wall. Because I like optionality. I think you have a quarterback that really is good at reading the field and picking a good option, and to like really limit him into the single read, like, but that's the only read, like, because like that's one of those classic, like the ball comes in and you're throwing it right away. Like you don't process, you just do. I don't love that. I really don't. I think it takes away from what Lamar does best, and yeah, bad times.
Yeah. Again, that goes back to, I think, what we were talking about in the offseason, why we wanted to see the Ravens move away from Greg Roman, is those type of plays, those made sense back in, years 1 and 2 of Lamar, maybe even 3. but he has progressed as a passer and reader of defenses from then. There's no point of doing those plays, it feels like, particularly you have an offseason where you bring in 3 pass catchers. You have more options on the field. We don't need to just single in on one. You got options. You can scan the field. I'm totally in agreement with there, and also with running the ball more. Why didn't we run the ball more? I agree. Everyone who carried averaged at least 4 yards per carry. 4 for Gus, 7.6 for Lamar. He was having a great game on the ground. 4.6 for Justice. I know he had that fumble, but he was having one of the better games of his career, just from a pure toting the rock standpoint, making plays. And also, particularly, you're going against an offense that can't move the ball down the field consistently and have quick play drives. So you want to chew up the clock. You want to pressure them because they know it's going to take them a while to get into the red zone when they have the ball. Yeah, I agree. It was an odd decision. I don't think that we needed to attempt as many passes as we did. It just weird, particularly after, against Cleveland, I thought we did run the ball a very healthy amount, and that translated into a very successful formula, and you were still able to have an efficient passing game. So bit of an odd one there, a head scratcher there. Also, particularly, the Steelers' rush defense has been absolutely putrid the past couple years. So,
yeah,
another frustration.
I didn't do the split, but I really should have. I wanted to look at the yards after they scored points versus before, but we were running at will. They would do the read option, and they would completely read the wrong option, and it would just be a C, and it was like one guy left to beat. So for Lamar, he doesn't beat that one guy. He gets 25 yards, ho-hum. Then for Justice Hill, there's no one that touches him. He runs 15 yards. He could have ran for 80. like there's no one there. He scores a touchdown with ease. Like, I don't know how you go away from that so quickly. We just discussed there 40 yards of rushing, and in the game, we didn't have more than 100 and change, 120. And that was just plays in the beginning of the game, the first productive drive. I know that we, by definition of having worse drives, maybe the run success rate went down. Sure. But we also didn't run that much. So I think it was just we weren't calling the right plays there. And that's disappointing, man. I really want to see a little bit more out of Monken here, just being able to scheme up this offense to just get in a groove. It seems like they're just hot. They're so hot or cold. It's unbelievable. And with this defense, you got like you said, it's so smart. This defense is number 2 in DVOA. Okay. They are no joke. We all see it. And why are we not just score some points, be efficient, take time off the ball, clock, and you'll win every game. You really will. It's not a hard formula with how good this defense is playing, but we're just not doing it.
Well, and particularly in this game, it's it's not like the Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are on the opposite sideline. Even Steelers fans are being very frank. Matt Canada-led offense with the current skill positions is just not something that they have a terribly good amount of confidence in. So, yeah, the only thing I can think about is maybe you look at the offensive line and you see what's going on there, and maybe that made the coaching staff feel that as the game went on, the Steelers were going to have more success in defending the run. I don't know, but
I don't buy it for a second.
The pass protection was worse. The pass protection was worse than the run. Yeah. Unfortunately, Ronnie Stanley came back and does not look healthy. Now, granted, sure, he had a tough assignment, but he's also one of the best left tackles in the league, and has usually, when he's healthy, he can hold his ground against TJ Watt and that defense. But man, I forget if it was you who shared the tweet or who, but he gave up 9 pressures, I believe, in the game.
K-Fish.
Yeah, that's...
Correspondent K-Fish has been grinding X for us. Love that guy.
Might be the only one of us who still uses it.
Yeah, it seems that way sometimes. But yeah, he had 9 pressure events. He did not look good in this game, and it's definitely very concerning. He had a couple plays that looked good, like quintessential Stanley, but clearly was getting overmatched. Probably not 100%, given that he was coming back from injury. Kind of fascinating. Didn't seem like an injury that should have held him up like that, but it seems like it is. So we got to figure it out, man. If Stanley's not playing well, you got problems. But now the right side is in shambles. Moses, Glass Eater Moses, Dog Moses was at the vet because he couldn't get suit up in this game. I think it was a 134 game streak that got snapped. So he wasn't able to play in this game. McCary comes in. McCary plays poorly, honestly. Didn't play great. Not to the level that we would hope. Obviously, tough assignment. These edge rushers we talked about. But then he gets a chest injury, which is horrible for a tackle, by the way. I'm very concerned. I'm very, very concerned that McCary might have a big problem coming up, maybe done for the year. And then Falele is like just not an NFL tackle. I hate to say it. I really wanted to see more. I thought we saw some signs. This guy is a huge liability. I want to see Ben Cleveland. Like, I really do at this point. I want to see Ben Cleveland right tackle, because if McCary's hurt and Moses is hurt for another game going to London, I think you got to put Cleveland in there. I think you got to try it. And that's scary. That's not a great tackle option, but Falele was so bad that I have to pull the cord. I have to pull the cord. I can't let it happen again. It's like a Baker situation, Baker into Webb.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we're talking about the tackles, but, another week again, Kevin Zeitler just not looking like the guy who we've seen the past 2 seasons in Baltimore. I hate to say it, I didn't really take a good look at him. Just kind of was looking at the offensive line in general in my rewatch, and just looking at where were the mistakes happening, and Zeitler was among them. It was mainly the tackles and him. It feels like whenever the pocket broke down. Linderbaum, like I said, he seemed to do fine in the game. John Simpson did fairly well. There were multiple instances where I saw the pocket collapse. He still seemed to have a good handle on his guy. But yeah, the older vets on this team, we're seeing some signs of age, which is not great. Hopefully that can be something that can be fixed as the season goes on. But so far, it feels like we've had one good game from this line, that game against Cincinnati. And that's really been it so far.
Yeah, their defense isn't that good. So here's my thing, man. All right, so I just called for Ben Cleveland. I said I want to see Ben Cleveland at right tackle if these guys don't get healthy. Well, let's hope they do. Particularly Moses. It feels like he'll come back, right? Okay, so we have Moses coming back. He's at right tackle. How long of a leash does Zeitler have at right guard at this point that you don't try Cleveland? I mean, obviously we're not there for practices, but I think it's fair to say that the game plan for next year, with no acquisitions whatsoever, which is not reasonable, right? There will be a draft. There is like the chance of Voorhees coming back. Maybe he, even though we project maybe is left, maybe he's a right tackle. I guess actually probably, or guard rather. I guess they do go to the other side. I take that back. But Cleveland, like he's a guy. He's there. He's an option. I'm starting to wonder if he should get a run at guard at this point. Like it's getting bleak with Zeitler.
I don't think we're there yet. I like having Zeitler out there to help Linderbaum. I don't know if there's anything to that. I will admit, but
that's a huge thing. That's a good point. Yeah, he calls all the line adjustments.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like having, even if Zeitler's not there physically what he used to be, I just think having him with his knowledge of the game out there to help Linderbaum, to help the rest of the line is very valuable. Cleveland, I agree. I haven't lost hope on him being a guy who can be yet another late developing, late round interior lineman that the Ravens develop and in year 4 or 5 explodes and becomes a guy who gets a huge payday somewhere. I don't know. I feel like Cleveland's also still just a question mark. I believe that he has skills that can translate well, but I also believe he could be just a total wash as well if we replace Zeitler with him. So, right now I am definitely giving a hard pass to that idea. Keep Zeitler in at all costs. But as the season moves on, if we're not seeing improvement from Zeitler, maybe I'll warm up to that idea. I don't foresee myself saying that, but we'll see. We'll see a few weeks down the line.
I think you bring up a really good point about him kind of calling the plays at the line and that veteran expertise. And for those reasons, I do think he has a lot longer of a leash than maybe I give credit for just from the way he's playing. But yeah, I mean, I don't hope injury on anyone, but if he gets injured, I think then it's a no-brainer. Obviously, so you have to bring somebody in. You bring in Cleveland, but then the question is, if Cleveland does play well, I don't know what you do at that point. Because I will say this. Zeitler's in the last year of his contract. You drafted a number one pick center, first center drafted off the board, and Linderbaum. Typically, Centers can have these responsibilities. You're gonna carry the torch over, right? Like it should go to Linderbaum eventually. You would expect. So yeah, I think that's probably enough for the offensive line. Really, dreadful performance. And this is becoming a liability. This is the trend. If we're talking about from a quarter, of the year gone by, this line is not living up to any expectations whatsoever. It's been pretty bad. Definitely. And wide receivers below average. I think running backs are doing pretty darn good considering they lost J.K. Dobbins. So, congrats to them. But you got to just clean it up, man. Clean up the execution, the fumbles. Not ideal. and go from there. Moving on to the defense, got to give them big congrats. 53 straight games that the Steelers have, as an offense, not gained over 400 yards, which is a ridiculous streak. It didn't take very long for the Canada Boo Birds to come out at Acrisure. They were booing him out of the job, saying, like, this guy's awful. I think they still think that after this game, even after the win, but pretty bad offensive performance by the Steelers. And a lot of it did have to do with the defense by the Ravens. The defense did play quite well. Although I will say this is a very interesting game for the Ravens defense because of the personnel packages used and what they did with the secondary with the return of Humphrey and Williams.
That 53 games is 53 straight games for the Steelers, right? Not 53 straight games the Ravens have held the Steelers offense to under. Okay, yeah. So I was doing some quick math in my head. I was like, that can't be right at all. First off,
it's too many games.
Right. And I know that a couple of years ago, with some injuries, Antonio Brown ran wild. But anyways, yeah, it's really incredible. And it's funny that we're jumping right to the defense after talking about the offensive line. Because going into the year, on paper, I thought I was just like, this offensive line, this might be one of the most solid units, if not the most solid unit on the team. And we look at the secondary and we're like, man, with these injuries, this cornerback room, huge question marks. I don't know. It's flipped. Definitely, I think our perceptions are flipped in both those cases. This cornerback room continues to impress. We got Marlowe back, like you said. Looked a little rusty, made some plays, obviously gave up a big play. We'll talk about that. But they're continuing to truck along. Ronald Darby, Arthur Mollett, they're making plays. They're continuing to. Brandon Stevens is continuing to have a breakout year, looking like a completely different player, hard hitting, making plays. Just have they been tested yet? I mean, that's still a question. Was the Bengals really a test? Hard to say. Matt Canada's Pittsburgh Steelers, I wouldn't say is a test. But again, like we're saying, the environment of this game is different than a normal game with this rivalry on the road. So look, they're continuing to exceed expectations. And now you've got Marlon back. Now you have to see how do you continue to maintain that and keep guys in situations where they can thrive while you got your star cornerback back. Great problem to have. So yeah, I mean, we're continuing to see big things, and hopefully this unit continues to build upon that week after week.
Marlon Humphrey played 56% of snaps, so he kind of was ramped up back in. Darby played the other 44% of those snaps. Mollett did play a lot of snaps too. Let's see. It's worth talking about him in the same breath. He played 35% of snaps here, and I thought he looked phenomenal against his previous team. Had pass deflections, he had a sack. He's definitely stepped up as a solid slot corner option for when we don't have Hamilton down there. And then, Stevens, our favorite fee safety, according to the game book, like you said, with 100% of the snaps, playing really well. I will say this is not the deployment I thought we would get. That clearly is the Ravens being a little surprised by how well Darby's playing to be able to do a rotation. I think in any other year, you get Humphrey back, no matter his health, you're probably running him 100%, unless, it's pretty bad, I guess. So him having this ramp-up period, I think is a testament to how well these corners are playing. And you're right, like this group is really solid. Rock Ya-Sin doesn't even see the field as a defensive player, only on special teams. Kind of a fascinating turn of events. But yeah, I don't think this quite answered the question of, okay, when he's back, what are they going to do with this excess of corner health? But what it did answer is that they played a lot more base in this game, which is interesting. We saw 50% of snaps from Harrison, and we saw a lot less Stone because of it. Because then when they play base for like 50% of the time, then Stone can only get out there for, oh, look at that, 30% of the snaps, right? Because, yeah, because they're going to have Hamilton play those safety snaps. So pretty interesting turn of events, honestly. With the deployment of these guys, bringing back these two secondary pieces really did shift the way our secondary is working, and I think the play calls.
Yeah, definitely. I hadn't looked at the numbers of base, but that is definitely interesting that we had a little more than usual. I guess I could see it kind of makes sense with how the Steelers' offense is constructed, right? What they run. Maybe we'll see a lot of that against Tennessee as well next weekend. They don't have a huge number of options to throw to in the passing game, and you want to make sure you have big body guys to tackle Derrick Henry, right? So, yeah, I mean, I agree. We didn't learn too much about what's going to happen the rest of the way, but I mean, you're probably not going to go full strength when you're bringing this guy back from injury anyway. I mean, we're talking about Marlon Humphrey coming back, Marcus Williams coming back, Ronnie Stanley coming back. You look at the game, I do wonder if that had something to do with it. Like, if it wasn't road game against Pittsburgh, would these guys have sat out another week or two, right? Because all of them, to some degree, didn't look 100% healthy. Some of them look healthier than others. But I feel like that rivalry really may have sped up the timeline for some of them when really may have been a couple weeks later for some of those guys. So, yeah, it was at least interesting to get a taste of what it'll be with Marlon back in the fold. But yeah, I agree. I think that there's going to be some more tweaking being done as Marlon gets more comfortable, as some more time passes, and it might change from game to game. I think it'll be really interesting to see the Detroit game. That offense is humming. They got plenty of receiving options there. That's going to be a very much more up-tempo game than what we're seeing this week, and likely what we'll see next week against Tennessee. So I think that one will be really interesting to see what personnel, what formations the Ravens bring out to stop a, crazy to say it, red-hot Detroit Lions passing attack.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I look forward to that game as well for those reasons. I will say, when I said that they changed the play calling, I thought it was a lot of hubris to have that zero blitz, single coverage on Pickens with Marlowe, who we're allegedly saying wasn't 100% because he didn't play 100% snaps, right? Giving him no help, and then he gets beat, on this play. We don't see the Ravens defense do that. That's not something we've been doing this year. We've always had safety help. It's been to our benefit. We've been saying how much it's helped. We're very happy about it. And I was very disappointed to see that call. Again, this is a gamble that you don't have to take, right? You don't have to take. Let them beat you. Don't beat yourself. So I really didn't like that kind of call. Yeah, I understand that the pass rush wasn't very effective in this game. Ford never got there, which is disappointing and worth talking about. But I don't care. Pickett doesn't scare me. Like, give good coverage and you'll be fine.
I mean, that play is Wink Martindale stuff, right? I mean, that's what we saw in 2021. That's what lost us against Chicago. That's what lost us against, there was another game that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. And like you're saying, look, Marlon's hurt. He's playing. He's not 100%. Also, he struggled against Pickens last year. I mean, sure, he was playing well this game when matched up against him, but still, that he has a skill set that can get to him. I couldn't believe that play call. And we weren't the only ones. I don't think anyone understood that. And I mean, you got to give some respect to Kenny Pickett. I know he's not very good at this point in his career. We've seen him. He doesn't look like he's going to be a guy who's really going to scare you. But we saw this last year. The guy is tough as nails. He is a tough football player. You give him the ball and say, I need you to get the drive down and score points for us to win. Look, the guy sucked his whole game again Sunday night last year, and he did the same thing. He had the game-winning touchdown pass. That's just what this guy can do. You cannot let the Steelers stick around. You cannot let Kenny Pickett stick around. I don't care if he sucks. Somehow, this guy knows what to do at the end of the game. And you cannot let a player that is able to do that have a shot. And that's what we did. And that was the result. Very frustrating.
Yeah.
There's no other thing you can say about it.
Yeah, he definitely seems to be a better player when the chips are on the line, which is kind of interesting. Many players don't do that. But, you look at the rushing yards, kind of crazy. Under 100 yards rushing by this team, 16 yards by Pickett on that reverse play. But Warren had 40 on 9 attempts, and Najee had 37 on 14 attempts. Those guys were relatively bottled up. There was that one drive, the touchdown drive, where Warren had some good run, both in the pass game and in the running game. But other than that, everything was kind of bottled up the whole game. The ball wasn't going anywhere. A lot of empty calories. They only had 3 points. Super frustrating to see the Ravens kind of falter like that at the end. I think as much as we trust the defense, and we're saying, you play a complimentary football game, you score enough points, call it 20, you probably win every game this year. You win a lot of games this year by scoring 20. You score 30, you probably win every game with how the defense is playing. I just don't know. I don't know what happened at the end there. I don't know if they were gassed. I don't think they were, but they just started making some, lesser plays.
Correction to what I said earlier. We did actually win that game against Chicago. I forgot that was Tyler Huntley did bring us back.
Oh yeah, that game we shouldn't have won though. You're right. We shouldn't have won it.
We should have lost it because we let Andy Dalton throw that bomb there on that zero blitz and they completed too. That was to Dante Pettis, wasn't it? It was some obscure receiver. I think it was Pettis. Yeah, but we did have enough time to drive down and get the winning touchdown by Devonta Freeman. Yeah, but sorry, Marquise Goodwin, another one of your failed fantasy darlings. But I knew it was one of them, those guys.
When it was either that player or a different play in that game. If they just took a kneel, they could have won the game, but they decided to go ahead. Yeah. So yeah, it was just that was a coaching blunder.
Crazy. Yeah. But our rush defense this year is, I don't think that was a surprise. I think we thought it was going to be good, but yeah, it's been dominant. And man, in an infinite cap world, you'd love to keep this tandem of Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen going. It's been incredible how Roquan has just unlocked Queen. And I think we can say for certain that Queen has been unlocked in this defense. This is now 5 straight games where he's performed. Consistency was the biggest thing with Queen in years past. Missed tackles was the biggest thing. Not showing up in big games was a big thing. He's shown up in every game this year. You're not seeing him miss tackles. He's attacking ball carriers. He's not getting dragged. It's just something you can count on week in and week out is Roquan and Queen coming in and doing their thing, causing havoc in the run game, in the pass game. It has been the base of this defense, the foundation of it. And hopefully Simpson can take over and Roquan can have the same impact on him next year, because I don't think we're going to be able to re-sign Queen. I think he's getting a big payday somewhere, unless he wants to. He's offered a huge hometown discount, and for some reason he decides to take it, which I don't think he will, and I don't think he should. I think this is going to be the one season we'll have to capitalize on this a full season of this tandem.
Yeah, for sure. I don't see Queen sticking around, like you said, and I have some concern about Simpson and our limited exposure to seeing him. I guess we'll see, but yeah, it's enjoy the ride, enjoy it while it lasts. I think this is going to be a really good defense this year. I think the defensive line played really well. We saw some really good performances from Pierce, Matabike, and Jones. They were able to dominate at the point of attack, get in the backfield, stuff runs, create pressure, even if they didn't, get sacks. And I thought that I think they played really well. And when you have that going on, that's what Ray Lewis always wanted. He wanted the line to keep the guys off him so he could hunt. And Roquan has that, Queen has that, and they be hunting.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's incredible. It's a very solid group. I don't know if anyone's playing at a Pro Bowl level, but everyone's doing their part. And it's also really cool to see Brent Urban come in here and be an impact guy. Late round pick as a special teams when he first came here. Then obviously went and played some other places, came back. And he's been a great rotational guy for this team. His big old 6'7" or whatever he is, arm going up there and getting in the passing lane, knocking passes down. Seems to be a guy who really gels with the chemistry of this team. Seems like a guy that guys like. I think he's been an incredible story this year that's kind of flown under the radar a little bit. I mean, obviously he did well last year too, but I think he's stepping up a little bit this year with Calais gone. He's now the big guy there. Not that, and I'm sure Urban will agree with me, not that he's anywhere near the caliber of a player that Calais is, but I think that he has kind of gone out there and been the tall freak on the defensive line that we can throw out there and really disrupt the line and cause some traffic in the passing lanes with his arms, his wingspan there.
Yeah, great call out. He had a sack in this game, played well. I want to just one last ping I want to talk about with the defense, and feel free to add anything else you want to talk about. I really want to monitor this Marcus Williams situation because I really, honor the guy for trying to come back and play. He's playing with his brace, clearly kind of playing with one arm. And I'm worried that how effective he's going to be relative to how well Stone was playing. And I know obviously Worley's hurt right now and, maybe Lucian's not ready for prime time. Fair enough. I say all that. The guy that was on our practice squad got poached, so he's not going to be available. So I get we're in a crossroads with safety. There's not much depth, but I don't know, man. Hopefully it's something that gets better over time, but he was very clearly hampered in this game, and it just makes me concerned that he's not himself. I think he's our third best safety right now, and he's out there 95% of snaps.
Well, he rushed back. I mean, yeah. I mean, we know that, right?
Yeah.
We saw, he didn't magically speed up that timeline. The body's going to take how long it's going to take to recover from that injury. So, I mean, for the next 2-ish months, he's going to be limited. That's just what that injury is. So it'll be interesting. I do wonder if he plays next week. Maybe that was just hey, let's come out for Pittsburgh, come out for the rivalry game, and then, maybe sit out this week, see how the body responds to taking that week off and be back for a game where we'll need, really good safety play against the Lions. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Back in the day, back decades ago in football, you look at that and you're just like, man, look at that warrior, look at him laying it all for the team. And now today with all the math we have and all the video, we're just like, but you're not yourself. You're gutting through it, but you got a teammate here who, sure, let's acknowledge that he doesn't have the same talent as you, but he's still pretty darn good, and he can do your job and just get healthy. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. I agree. I think that there were some plays that he made, but he certainly didn't seem like his normal self. Didn't seem to have the same impact that he usually would, presumably. But also, Pittsburgh's not the best gauge for that because they don't really challenge deep very often. So yeah, I don't know. It's definitely something to monitor. And a bit of a gamble on Williams' part and the Ravens' part, not just like you're saying, a potential downgrade in play because he's not fully healthy, but also a risk of aggravating that injury and making it even worse. So it's a gamble. I get it. I get why he pushed to come back. I get why the Ravens pushed him to come back, but we'll just have to see if this was the right decision.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. Almost all the production from the wide receivers in this game were from the outside wide receivers, and almost all them either on the outer boundary of the field or maybe crossing the middle barely, but not really. There was very little towards the direct middle of the field. I think they were afraid of Roquan and Queen lurking there. So yeah, I mean, 10 targets. 6 catches for Pickens for 130 yards. Of course, that back-breaking 41-yarder. And then Allen Robinson, the ghost of Allen Robinson, 9 targets, 5 catches for 29 yards. So, other than that one big, over-the-top play, obviously Pickens had a good game as well without that. But nothing too back-breaking for the defense and the secondary. So we'll see if, how he handles. I think he is going to play. It's one of those weird pride things, man. They're veterans, they're marquee guys, they're ReCAP guys. They're available. They're probably going to play. And even if they're not at 100% or necessarily even helping the team, it's a very weird tightrope that Harbaugh and the coaching staff has to walk here.
Yeah, I think the one advantage you do have is, again, it goes back to what we talked about with Zeitler. Having a guy with the knowledge that Williams has, a football IQ, he knows he's going to be in the right place. Again, like we're saying, Stone, he seems to have really good instincts too, aside from when he's returning the football. But as far as coverage, the stuff that actually matters, not saying that return skills don't matter, but, it's a lot more of a problem if you give up, big plays consistently rather than, giving up some return yardage that your offense can get back. So, yeah, not much more to say. There's concern, and we're just going to have to monitor it.
Indeed. Special teams, we're talking about briefly. Stout had some great punts in this game, keeping their offense inside the 5. I thought that was really great. The block punt was terrible. Unfortunately, the All-52 is not available yet. I was looking just before the recording to kind of get a good angle on what went wrong. I think it was Stone's fault, going back to Stone as personal protector, why that block punt happened. I don't think he picked up the guy properly, and that's the best I could tell from the limited angles and the poor angles I saw from the game rewatch and the highlight reel or whatever of that play. Looking for the All-22 to get a true answer there, but this is a trend. The special teams this year has not been great, and the DeVoa shows it. We're like 26 in special teams DeVoa this year, which is like uncalled for. This is not Ravens football. They're not playing like Ravens.
Yeah, which is particularly embarrassing, I'm sure, for Harbaugh, because that obviously is his calling card. That's a special teams coach. He knows it better than nearly any coach in the league, probably more than any head coaches. Look, special teams, I think, is really hard for us to break down. Maybe this week, if I have time, I'll look at the film, see if there's anything I can look at, spot that looks different than years past. My hope, of course, is that over the next couple games, special teams is perfect and we won't have to talk about it, because it's not the most exciting thing to talk about, unless it's Justin Tucker. But yeah, he felt bad for Stout, man. Not his fault. He had a great game punting the ball. But when your protection's not there, that can happen. Luckily, it was only a safety and not a touchdown. Of course, it didn't end up mattering because we lost the game anyway, but could have been worse. But it's got to get shored up. It's got to get shored up, especially when we're talking about these issues we're having on the offense with drops and fumbles. We can't afford to be adding on to that with special teams. Now the special teams did give us a big play that the offense was unable to capitalize with that recovered punt. The fumble that got us the ball in the red zone and seemed like it would be the play of the game, right? That would get us over the hump. But still, even though there was that positive play from the coverage unit, giving up a block punt, especially that, deep in your own territory, is always unacceptable. It can't happen. So it's got to get worked up. I believe that Harbaugh can do it, but also at the same time, I don't have enough insight into it to say if the issues that we're having are definitely correctable with the personnel we have. So again, just something we can just hope that Harbaugh's track record will be enough to figure out these kinks and to get them shored up.
Yeah, we do have some special teamers that are hurt right now. Tom Walls being one of them. So who knows, man? But let's talk some moral victories and wrap this show up. You have one, Peter?
I do, and I kind of already talked about him, but I think Brent Urban's been a great story for the Ravens the past 2 years. Really starting to shine. Like I said, it's great to see him have a sack. Always great seeing a guy come back to the organization, really enjoy playing there, embodying what it means to be a Raven, and just accepting his role, right? He's a rotational guy. He's not getting all the snaps, but when he's out there, he makes an impact. So Brent Urban, just want to give him a spotlight here, and just hopefully he continues doing what he's doing.
For me, it's Millette. Great revenge game for him. Got the sack, pass deflection, played well. Appreciate his contribution so far to the team. I think he's giving us some flexibility to use Hamilton in different spots and not have him completely relegated to slot. And I appreciate that from him. So with that, we'll wrap up the show. Hoping for a big Orioles win tomorrow and the day after that, and hope that we have a game on Friday to look forward to get this bad taste out of our mouth from the worst weekend in Baltimore sports since we've been alive. Because we always win the Super Bowl, so it's been fine. I guess maybe the weekend when we lost in 2019 was pretty bad too. But yeah, we will push forward, and you can find us on Twitter at OneWinningPod, Threads at OneWinningPod, email us at OneWinningPod@gmail.com. Love to talk to you, and we'll see you later in the week talking about those Titans.